Hello, welcome to another coffee break with Kardec, our regular coffee break where we bring some aspects discussed in Genesis, one of Allan Kardec's books, and Genesis being the most scientific amongst the 5 main books within Spiritism. And today we are going to talk about the spiritual principle, the human body and the spiritual principle. We won't go into detail because in the future we will talk in more detail about the spiritual principle, what it is, and the difference between the spiritual and the material principle, which are different principles. But what I want to bring for our coffee break today is, in fact, the aspect that the need for a spiritual principle pointed out by Allan Kardec. The first chapters in Genesis, Kardec basically he reviews the current knowledge at his time, which to a certain extent is very much up to date, about the origin of life, mineral kingdom, vegetable kingdom, animal kingdom. And he also discusses this continuous progress when life began and how life developed here on Earth. So it's very interesting to see what Kardec mentioned, which was the current knowledge at his time, to what we know nowadays. And so what Kardec says here is that Spiritism totally agree with materialism. And here materialism, he talks about material sciences, those sciences that only accept and believe in what the research they do, the knowledge they've gathered about the material world says. They don't talk about other things but the material world. But what Kardec says is, why would he spend so many chapters talking about material sciences? He talks about biology, he talks about chemistry, geology, astronomy, and physics, and so many sciences, because he says we totally agree with science, he calls materialism. Totally agree. The point is, where materialism stops, Spiritism carries on. It's like accepting that, a building that has 4 levels, a 4-story building. 4-story building is the building of material sciences, and this same structure is agreed by Spiritism. But the thing is, Spiritism builds up beyond that, goes much higher. Actually, what Spiritism proposed to us goes much further than what materialism shows us. But what Kardec says is that, yes, our material sciences are studying the material world. And of course, there is an agreement between Spiritism and materialism or material sciences in terms of material aspects of life. That's why he mentions all these sciences, all the knowledge that was current at his time. But then he goes beyond that. He uses that to show that, materialism stopped here and we go beyond. And where does he start these beyond, as it were, going further? The point where materialism says, I won't go any further, and then Spiritism just say, well, I'll carry on indefinitely, is exactly the existence of the intelligent principle. Kardec points out very clearly that our body, our human body, is the results of a development over millions of years. Since life started here on this planet, it was evolving. It was a characteristic of life in this planet the capability of multiplying itself, of replicating itself, but also giving room within each replication of some variations. So that would be called adaptability, or open room for the environment to act upon that process of evolution. So one of the characteristics of life as well, defined by sciences, is that they follow the process of evolution proposed by Darwin, the same process of evolution. So what he says is that our body is not that different from the body of all the mammals, because we are, within the same group, mammals, within the animal kingdom. So our body is not that different. It's not that different from monkeys. It's not that different from other animals. We know, for instance, in medicine, when they want to test something, sometimes they use rats, they use mice, because it's easier to grow and handle them in laboratories. But if you want to test something in an organism which is very close to our body, you do it in pigs. Pigs, they respond very similarly, the organs and everything very similarly to our own physical body. And what Kardec wants to point out is that our physical body is no different, or there aren't major differences from our body to the body of all the other mammals in the animal kingdom, because we are composed by the same atoms. There isn't one single atom in our body that is different, that only we have. The processes are very much the same. These processes, they have been elaborated through millions of years. So it's the result of a long, very long process to get where we are. We can see in lower kingdoms in our planet, in life here, that some of these aspects, they are tested. They are tested as a laboratory, a natural laboratory, where some functions, they work within those animals, or sometimes even plants. And then we have that, we inherit that. So we are the composition of what is best in this long-term process, this process that started millions of years ago. But there is a continuation in this process. We got to the top of this process because our body is highly sophisticated, but is not that much different from the other animals that come just behind us, the monkeys and the pigs and all the other mammals, as he says. So if we decompose, the process of decomposition is very much the same. The atoms that compose our bodies, the molecules and so on, they'll go composing minerals and plants and other animals. So we return to these to the resources that are available here in our planet. And once we do that, we basically, our body is gone. But what remains after all this process? What are the important aspects in all these? What he points out is that our intelligence, our sense of moral, our virtues, they are more sophisticated. They are more advanced compared to other animals. Not that they don't show some degree of these, in inverted commas, intelligence, or in inverted commas, moral senses. I say in inverted commas because, according to Spiritism, it's only in the human body, I would say, that we actually have individualized spirits. But it doesn't mean that this intelligent principle, as he calls, is not being developed and prepared and manipulated through the other kingdoms. So just like our organs, they have gone through this process of constant and elaboration over a long period of time. Our liver today, it works in that way. It's not because all of a sudden it appeared in nature totally out of the blue. No, it's the functions. Everything has been elaborated over a long period of time. And then the end result is our liver, and then our stomach, and then all the other organs, our heart, and so on. And all these combined form the most sophisticated organic body that we find on this planet. But those who are using that, they are something beyond the physical body. So when we die, our intelligence is gone, our moral senses are gone. Can you imagine the amount of knowledge that we have produced as humanity? The beauties through arts, paintings, and poems, poetry, and literature, and so on. So many theories, so sophisticated. And the organs that we use, they are different from the other animals here, but they are not that different, that enough to explain how all this intelligence, how all this has been produced by us. What he says is that the body diminishes in value in terms of intelligence and moral. But on the other hand, the spirit gains in value when you look at that. So what he says is that we start simple. When we've heard so many times, some of us have heard it so many times, that the spirit starts in the atom all the way to the archangel. And what does it mean? It means that all the intelligent principle that is something different from matter, and we will explain in detail some other time, it has been elaborated carefully over a long period of time in nature until the point that we have the spiritual principle, which is independent of the material body, but goes hand in hand with the material body. So we see that in a world where the spirits are more evolved, the bodies are more evolved, more sophisticated, less dense, less animal, we would say. We are less close to the animal kingdom. We are more spiritualized kingdom, as it were. And that also reflects on the functions of the bodies that we find in these more evolved worlds. So what I'm trying to say is that together with the evolution of the body, there is a principle that is not material, but is there together with the body, which is the intelligent principle, and is individualized in the human kingdom. At one point, we become individualized, we gain memory, we start to accumulate experience, and with this experience, we learn and develop our virtues. This is the process of evolution. It's a topic of not one, but many coffee breaks in the future. We would, have a lot of coffee if we wanted to talk just about one of these aspects. But we have the opportunity in another break in the future. So the beauty is that, and Kardec says that there's no need nowadays, no more need to prove the spirit, because the spirit is a natural consequence of what we see, the intelligence that we manifest. As he says, to an intelligent effect, there is an intelligent cause. And the intelligent cause is not in matter. The intelligent cause is beyond that. And we see that exactly at this point, Spiritism starts to walk further ahead of materialism, or material sciences, as it were. So the spiritual principle is also a corollary, a consequence of the existence of God. Because if God had not created intelligent beings in his creation, if it was just inert matter, what was the purpose for God to be all just, all love, all his attributes, to be all goodness, to be all goodness for inert matter? to be all goodness, all justice for inert matter. No, it makes sense. The attributes of God, they only make sense if you have intelligent beings, intelligent principle in the creation. If you don't, there's no reason for that. It's like having a room full of beautiful pieces of art, paintings, sculptures, and so on, but it's in pitch dark, without a single light for us to see. What is the point in having all that in a room where you can't see a thing? It's the same thing. He says it's a natural consequence of the existence of God. So with that, I've finished my coffee and it's time for us to move on. So I see you in our next coffee break with Kardec, and wish you all the best. See you next time.